Hey everyone, it's Emily here. Today I want to talk about something that's been on my mind lately. I've been thinking a lot about my younger self. If I could go back in time and give advice to the Emily from 10 years ago, what would I say? What lessons have I learned that I wish I knew earlier? I think we all have moments like this, right? Moments when we look back and think, if only I had known that back then. Well, today I want to share some of these thoughts with you. Maybe some of these lessons will resonate with you too. Maybe you're going through something similar right now, or maybe you'll find something useful for your own journey. So let's start with the first thing. The first thing I wished I knew when I was younger is this: perfection doesn't exist, and chasing it will only make you miserable. When I was in my early 20s, I was obsessed with being perfect. Perfect grades, perfect appearance, perfect social life. I wanted everything to be flawless. I would spend hours on a single assignment trying to make it absolutely perfect. I would stand in front of the mirror for 30 minutes trying to make my hair look just right. And you know what? It was exhausting. I remember one time in college, I was working on a presentation for my class. I must have rewritten my slides at least 20 times. 20 times. I kept thinking, this isn't good enough. I need to make it better. I stayed up until 3 in the morning tweaking every little detail. And when I finally gave the presentation, you know what happened? I got a good grade, sure, but I was so tired and stressed that I couldn't even enjoy it. Looking back now, I realize that all that extra stress wasn't worth it. The presentation was already good after the third or fourth draft, but I couldn't see that at the time. I was so focused on making it perfect that I lost sight of what really mattered. And here's the thing about perfectionism. It's not really about doing your best work. It's about fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. When you're a perfectionist, you're not trying to create something excellent. You're trying to protect yourself from criticism. But the truth is, no matter how hard you try, someone will always find something to criticize. There will always be someone who thinks you could have done better. And that's okay. That's normal. That's life. I wish I had known that when I was younger. I wish someone had told me that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not be the best at everything. It's okay to be good enough. These days, I try to follow what I call the 80% rule. Instead of aiming for 100% perfection, I aim for 80%. That means I do my best work, but I don't obsess over every tiny detail. I give myself permission to be human. And you know what? My work is still good. Sometimes it's even better because I'm not so stressed and anxious about it. So if you're someone who struggles with perfectionism, here's my advice. Start small. Pick one area of your life where you can practice letting go. Maybe it's how you organize your desk. Maybe it's how you respond to emails. Maybe it's how you cook dinner. Give yourself permission to do it good enough instead of perfectly. See how it feels. I think you might be surprised at how freeing it is. All right. The second thing I wish I knew when I was younger is about comparison. Specifically, stop comparing yourself to others. This is such a common problem, especially in today's world with social media everywhere. When I was younger, I would constantly compare myself to my friends, my classmates, my colleagues. She's prettier than me. He's more successful than me. They have a better relationship than me. It was like a constant voice in my head, always pointing out how I wasn't measuring up. And social media made it so much worse. I would scroll through Instagram or Facebook, and everyone's life looked so perfect. Perfect vacations, perfect bodies, perfect careers, perfect families. And there I was, sitting on my couch in my pajamas, feeling like a failure. But here's what I didn't understand back then. Social media is a highlight reel. It's not real life. When people post on social media, they're showing you the best moments. They're not showing you the arguments with their partner. They're not showing you the stress at work. They're not showing you the moments when they feel insecure or sad. I'll never forget this one time. I had a friend, let's call her Sarah. On social media, Sarah's life looked amazing. She was always traveling to exotic places. She posted photos from beaches in Thailand, mountains in Switzerland, cities in Japan. And I was so jealous. I thought, wow, she has such an incredible life. She's so much more adventurous than me. Then one day, Sarah and I met for coffee, and she told me the truth. Yes, she was traveling a lot, but she was also deeply unhappy. She was running away from problems at home. She felt lonely and disconnected. She was using travel as an escape, not as a source of joy. That conversation was a wake-up call for me. It made me realize that you never really know what's going on in someone else's life. You only see what they want you to see. These days, I try to be more mindful about comparison. When I catch myself comparing, I pause and remind myself, I'm comparing my behind the scenes to their highlight reel. That's not fair to me. And you know what else I've learned? Comparison is a thief of joy. When you're busy comparing yourself to others, you can't appreciate what you have. You can't celebrate your own accomplishments. You're always focused on what you lack instead of what you've achieved. So here's what I do now. Instead of comparing myself to others, I compare myself to who I was yesterday, last month, last year. Am I making progress? Am I growing? Am I learning? That's what matters, not whether I'm doing better or worse than someone else. I also practice gratitude. Every night before bed, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for. It sounds simple, maybe even a little cheesy, but it works. It shifts my focus from what I don't have to what I do have, and that makes a huge difference in how I feel. If you struggle with comparison, here's my advice. Take a break from social media, even just for a week. See how you feel. You might be surprised at how much lighter and happier you feel when you're not constantly bombarding yourself with other people's highlight reels. The third thing I wish I knew when I was younger is about relationships, and specifically this. You cannot change people. You can only change yourself. Oh man, I learned this lesson the hard way. When I was younger, I had this tendency to get into relationships with people who weren't right for me. And instead of accepting them as they were or walking away, I would try to change them. I would think, oh, he's great except for this one thing. If I can just help him fix that, everything will be perfect. Spoiler alert, it never worked. I remember dating someone in my mid-20s who was really unreliable. He would make plans and then cancel at the last minute. He would say he'd call and then not call. He was always late to everything. And instead of recognizing that this was just who he was, I kept trying to change him. I would have these long conversations with him about responsibility and respect. I would suggest tools and strategies for time management. I would get upset and explain how his behavior affected me. And you know what? Nothing changed because he didn't want to change. He was comfortable with who he was, and my attempts to change him just created tension and frustration. Eventually, I realized something important. When you try to change someone, you're essentially telling them you're not good enough as you are. And that's not love. That's not acceptance. That's trying to mold someone into your ideal version of them. Now, this doesn't mean you should accept bad behavior. It doesn't mean you should stay in unhealthy relationships. What it means is that you need to accept people as they are and then decide if that's what you want in your life. If someone is chronically unreliable, accept that they're unreliable. Then ask yourself, can I have a relationship with an unreliable person? If the answer is no, then it's time to move on. But don't stay and hope they'll change. They probably won't. This applies to all kinds of relationships, not just romantic ones. Friends, family members, colleagues. You cannot change them. You can communicate your needs and boundaries, absolutely, but you cannot force someone to become a different person. Which brings me to another related lesson. Setting boundaries is not selfish. This is something I really struggled with when I was younger. I was a people pleaser. I always said yes, even when I wanted to say no. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. I didn't want people to think I was mean or selfish. So I would overcommit, overextend myself, and then feel resentful and exhausted. I remember working at a job where my coworker would constantly ask me to help with her projects. At first, I didn't mind, but it became a pattern. She would leave things until the last minute and then ask me to bail her out. And I always said yes, even though it meant staying late or working through lunch. One day, my boss pulled me aside and said, "Emily, I've noticed you're helping Sarah a lot. That's kind of you, but I'm concerned you're not focusing enough on your own work." That was embarrassing, and it was a wake-up call. I realized that by not setting boundaries, I wasn't just hurting myself. I was also enabling my coworkers' bad habits and neglecting my own responsibilities. So I started setting boundaries. I started saying no. And you know what? The world didn't end. Most people respected my boundaries. And the ones who didn't, well, that told me something important about them. Setting boundaries is hard at first. It feels uncomfortable. You might worry that people will be upset with you. But here's the thing. People who care about you will respect your boundaries. And people who don't respect your boundaries probably don't deserve access to your time and energy. So if there's one thing I wish I could tell my younger self about relationships, it's this. Be yourself. Set boundaries. And don't try to change people. Accept them as they are and surround yourself with people who accept you as you are too. Let's talk about career and success now. The fourth thing I wish I knew when I was younger is that your career path doesn't have to be linear. And failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. When I graduated from college, I had this very specific idea of what my career should look like. I thought I needed to get a good job at a prestigious company, work my way up the ladder, and achieve certain milestones by certain ages. Promotion by 25, senior position by 30, that kind of thing. But life doesn't work that way. At least mine didn't. My first job out of college was not great. I thought it would be my dream job, but it turned out to be really boring and unfulfilling. I was doing the same repetitive tasks every day, and I felt like I wasn't learning or growing. But I stayed for 2 years because I thought quitting would look bad on my resume. When I finally left, I felt like a failure. I thought, I'm starting over. I'm behind everyone else my age. I was so stressed about the gap in my career progression. But looking back now, I realized that leaving that job was one of the best decisions I ever made. It forced me to really think about what I wanted. It opened up opportunities I never would have found if I had stayed on that original path. Since then, my career has taken so many unexpected turns. I've changed industries, learned new skills, tried different roles. And each experience, even the ones that felt like failures at the time, taught me something valuable. Here's what I've learned about failure. It's not something to be afraid of. It's information. When something doesn't work out, it's telling you something. Maybe it's telling you that this isn't the right path. Maybe it's telling you that you need to approach things differently. Maybe it's teaching you resilience and problem solving. Some of the most successful people in the world have failed many times. Did you know that Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job? They told her she was unfit for TV. Can you imagine? Or that Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he founded? Or that J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers before someone finally said yes. These people didn't succeed in spite of their failures. They succeeded because of them, because they learned from their failures, because they kept going. I wish I had understood this when I was younger. I wish I hadn't been so afraid of failure, because that fear held me back. It stopped me from taking risks, from trying new things, from pursuing opportunities that seemed uncertain. Now I try to see failure differently. When something doesn't work out, I ask myself, what can I learn from this? What will I do differently next time? And then I move forward. Another thing I've learned about career success is that it's okay to not have it all figured out. When I was younger, I thought everyone else had a clear plan and knew exactly what they were doing. But the truth is, most people are just figuring it out as they go along. We're all making it up to some degree. And that's okay. Life is not a test that you can fail. There's no one right way to build a career. There's no timeline you have to follow. Your journey is your own, and it's okay if it looks different from everyone else's. So if you're feeling uncertain about your career, or if you feel like you're behind, or if you've experienced a setback, I want you to know you're not alone. It's normal, and it doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're human, and you're figuring things out. Give yourself permission to explore. Give yourself permission to change your mind. Give yourself permission to take a path that doesn't make sense to anyone else, as long as it makes sense to you. All right, let's talk about money. This is something I really wish I had understood better when I was younger. The fifth lesson is, financial health is just as important as physical and mental health. When I was in my early 20s, I was terrible with money. I mean, really terrible. I didn't have a budget. I didn't save. I didn't think about the future. I just spent whatever I earned, and sometimes more than I earned. I remember getting my first credit card. I was so excited. It felt like free money. I could buy things I wanted without having to wait until my next paycheck. So I did. I bought clothes, went out to restaurants, took trips, and then the bill came. I was shocked. I had no idea I had spent that much. And when I saw the interest rate, I realized that if I only made the minimum payment, it would take me years to pay it off. Years. I felt sick. That was my first real lesson about money. Credit cards are not free money. They're debt, and debt has a cost. It took me a long time to pay off that first credit card. I had to cut back on so many things. I had to work extra hours, and all the while I was thinking about how stupid I had been. But looking back now, I'm actually grateful for that experience. It taught me an important lesson early on, before the stakes got even higher. After that, I started educating myself about personal finance. I read books, listened to podcasts, talked to people who were good with money, and I learned some basic principles that have served me well. First, pay yourself first. This means that as soon as you get paid, you put money into savings before you spend on anything else. Even if it's just a small amount, like 10% of your paycheck, it adds up over time. When I first started doing this, it felt difficult. I felt like I couldn't afford to save. But here's what I realized. If you don't save first, you'll never save. There will always be something to spend money on. There will always be a reason to put off saving until next month. So I automated it. I set up an automatic transfer from my checking account to my savings account on the day after payday. That way, I didn't even have to think about it. The money was saved before I had a chance to spend it. Second, understand the difference between wants and needs. This sounds simple, but it's actually quite difficult in practice. We're very good at convincing ourselves that our wants are needs. For example, do you need a new phone or do you want one? Does your current phone work? If it does, then a new phone is probably a want, not a need. And that's okay. It's fine to spend money on wants, but you need to be honest with yourself about what category something falls into. I like to use the 24-hour rule for non-essential purchases. If I see something I want to buy, I wait 24 hours before buying it. Often, after 24 hours, I realize I don't really want it that much. And if I still want it after 24 hours, then I feel good about the purchase because I know it's not just an impulse. Third, have an emergency fund. This is money that you set aside for unexpected expenses, like if your car breaks down, or you lose your job, or you have a medical emergency. Financial experts usually recommend having 3 to 6 months of living expenses saved in an emergency fund. I know that sounds like a lot, and when you're just starting out, it can feel impossible, but you don't have to build it all at once. Start small. Maybe your first goal is to save $500, then $1,000, then 1 month of expenses. Just keep building. Having an emergency fund has given me so much peace of mind. I sleep better at night knowing that if something unexpected happens, I have a cushion. I won't have to go into debt or panic. Fourth, invest in your future. This means thinking about retirement, even if it seems far away. When you're young, retirement feels like it's forever away. But the earlier you start saving for retirement, the better off you'll be, thanks to something called compound interest. Compound interest is basically when your money makes money, and then that money makes money. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger. The longer your money has to grow, the bigger it gets. I wish I had started investing for retirement earlier. Even small amounts make a big difference over time. If you have access to a retirement plan through your employer, especially if they match your contributions, take advantage of it. That employer match is literally free money. Finally, don't compare your financial situation to others. This goes back to what I said earlier about comparison in general, but it's especially important with money. You don't know what someone else's financial situation really is. Someone might drive a fancy car but be drowning in debt. Someone might live in a nice apartment but be struggling to pay rent. Someone might go on expensive vacations but have nothing saved for emergencies. Focus on your own financial goals and your own progress. Are you spending less than you earn? Are you saving regularly? Are you reducing debt? Are you working toward your goals? That's what matters. Money is a tool. It's not happiness and it's not success. But financial stability does give you options and peace of mind, and I wish I had understood that earlier. Let's talk about health now. The sixth thing I wish I knew when I was younger is that your health is your wealth. And I don't just mean physical health, I mean mental and emotional health too. When I was in my 20s, I treated my body terribly. I didn't sleep enough, I ate junk food all the time, I barely exercised. I was always stressed, but never did anything to manage that stress. I thought I was invincible. I thought I could keep pushing myself without any consequences. And for a while, I got away with it. My body was young and resilient. But then things started to catch up with me. I was tired all the time. I got sick frequently. I had trouble concentrating. I felt anxious and overwhelmed. And I realized that I couldn't keep living this way. So I started making changes. Small changes at first, then bigger ones. And I learned some important lessons along the way. First, sleep is not optional. This is something I really wish I had understood earlier. In college, in my early career, I wore my lack of sleep like a badge of honor. I only slept 4 hours last night, I would say proudly, as if that proved how hardworking I was. But here's the truth. When you don't sleep enough, everything suffers. Your mood, your focus, your immune system, your decision-making, your relationships, everything. Now I prioritize sleep. I aim for 7 to 8 hours a night. I have a bedtime routine that helps me wind down. I keep my bedroom cool and dark. And you know what? I'm so much more productive and happy when I'm well rested. If you're someone who doesn't prioritize sleep, I encourage you to start. Your future self will thank you. Second, move your body regularly. I'm not talking about becoming a fitness fanatic or training for a marathon. I'm just talking about regular movement. When I was younger, I thought exercise had to be intense to count. If I wasn't sweating and gasping for breath, I thought it was a waste of time. So I would either go hard at the gym or do nothing at all. And guess what? I usually did nothing at all. Now I understand that any movement is better than no movement. A 20-minute walk counts. Stretching counts. Dancing in your living room counts. The key is consistency, not intensity. I try to move my body every day, even if it's just for 15 or 20 minutes. Sometimes I go for a walk. Sometimes I do yoga. Sometimes I just put on music and dance around. And I feel so much better, both physically and mentally. Movement is not just about physical health. It's also amazing for mental health. When I'm feeling stressed or anxious, A walk outside almost always helps. There's something about moving your body and being in nature that just calms your mind. Third, eat real food most of the time. Notice I said most of the time, not all the time. I'm not talking about a strict diet or cutting out entire food groups. I'm talking about balance. When I was younger, my diet was terrible. Breakfast was often just coffee. Lunch was whatever was quick and easy, usually fast food. Dinner was either takeout or something from a box. And snacks? Well, let's just say I ate a lot of chips and candy. I didn't think much about what I was putting in my body. Food was just fuel, and I wanted the quickest, easiest fuel possible. But then I started noticing how different foods made me feel. After eating fast food, I felt sluggish and gross. After eating a meal with vegetables and protein, I felt energized and satisfied. My body was trying to tell me something. So I started cooking more. I started eating more vegetables and fruits. I started paying attention to how food made me feel. And I noticed a huge difference in my energy levels and overall health. But here's the key. I didn't try to be perfect. I still eat pizza and ice cream and all the things I love. I just try to eat real, nutritious food most of the time. It's about balance, not perfection. Fourth, take care of your mental health. This is so important, and it's something that I wish was talked about more when I was younger. For a long time, I thought that stress and anxiety were just normal parts of life. I thought everyone felt overwhelmed and worried all the time. I didn't realize that there were things I could do to feel better. Then I started therapy, and it was life-changing. Having someone to talk to, someone who could help me understand my thoughts and feelings, made such a difference. Therapy taught me that mental health is just as important as physical health. It taught me coping strategies for stress and anxiety. It helped me understand patterns in my behavior and thinking, and it gave me tools to build a healthier, happier life. If you're struggling with your mental health, please don't suffer in silence. Talk to someone. Whether it's a therapist, a counselor, a doctor, or a trusted friend or family member, there's no shame in asking for help. In fact, asking for help is one of the bravest things you can do. Finally, self-care is not selfish. This is related to what I said earlier about boundaries, but it's worth repeating. When I was younger, I felt guilty taking time for myself. I felt like I should always be productive, always be doing something for others. Taking a break or doing something just for me felt indulgent and selfish. But I've learned that you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you don't take care of yourself, you won't have anything left to give to others. Self-care is not selfish. It's necessary. Self-care looks different for everyone. For me, it's things like reading a book, taking a long bath, going for a walk, spending time with friends, or just having a quiet evening at home. It doesn't have to be expensive or elaborate. It just has to be something that recharges you. So make time for self-care. Schedule it if you have to. Put it in your calendar like you would any other important appointment, because taking care of yourself is important. Now let's talk about time. The seventh thing I wish I knew when I was younger is that time is your most valuable resource. More valuable than money, more valuable than possessions. Once time is gone, you can never get it back. When I was younger, I wasted a lot of time. I spent hours scrolling through social media. I binge watched TV shows I didn't even enjoy that much. I said yes to things I didn't want to do just because I felt obligated. I treated time like it was infinite, like there would always be more, like I could put off the things that mattered until someday. But here's the thing about someday. It never comes. There's no perfect moment to start that project, write that book, learn that skill, take that trip, have that conversation. The only moment you have is right now. I remember thinking, when I'm less busy, I'll start exercising, or when I have more money, I'll travel, or when I feel more confident, I'll pursue that opportunity. I was always waiting for the perfect conditions, but the perfect conditions never arrived. Life stayed busy. There were always reasons to wait, and meanwhile, time kept passing. One day I had this realization. I'm spending my life waiting to live my life. How crazy is that? I was putting my real life on hold while I waited for some imaginary future when everything would be perfect and easy. That realization changed everything for me. I stopped waiting for someday. I started making time for the things that mattered to me, even when conditions weren't perfect. I started that exercise routine even though I was busy. I took that trip even though I didn't have a lot of money saved up. I pursued opportunities even though I felt scared and uncertain. And you know what? I'm so glad I did. Because here's another truth about time. You don't know how much you have. None of us do. We like to think we have plenty of time, but we don't really know that. A few years ago, a friend of mine lost her father suddenly. He was only in his 50s, and he seemed healthy. One day he was there, and the next day he was gone. It was a shock to everyone. At his funeral, my friend told a story. She said that for years her father had talked about writing a book about his experiences. He had all these interesting stories and wisdom to share, but he kept putting it off. He kept saying, I'll do it when I retire. I'll have plenty of time then. But he never got that chance. The book never got written. All those stories and that wisdom are gone now. That really affected me. It made me think about all the things I was putting off until someday. And I realized I don't want to have regrets. I don't want to reach the end of my life and think about all the things I didn't do, all the time I wasted. So now I try to be more intentional with my time. I ask myself, is this how I want to spend my time? Is this important to me? Will I be glad I did this, or will I regret it? And I've started saying no to things that don't align with my values and priorities. I used to feel guilty saying no, but now I understand that every time I say yes to something that doesn't matter, I'm saying no to something that does. Another lesson about time: be present. This is something I really struggle with, even now. It's so easy to get caught up in worrying about the future or dwelling on the past. But when you do that, you miss the present moment. And the present moment is all you really have. I notice this especially with my phone. How many times have I been with friends or family, but not really present because I was checking my phone? How many beautiful moments have I missed because I was distracted? Now, I try to practice being present. When I'm with someone, I put my phone away. When I'm doing something, I try to really focus on it instead of multitasking. When I'm in a beautiful place, I try to actually look at it with my eyes instead of through a camera screen. It's hard. Our world is full of distractions, but being present makes life so much richer. It's the difference between experiencing your life and just going through the motions. So here's my advice about time. Use it wisely. Don't waste it on things that don't matter. Don't put off the things that do matter. Be present. Be intentional because time is precious, and once it's gone, you can never get it back. The eighth thing I wish I knew when I was younger is this: being yourself is better than being liked, and the people who are meant to be in your life will love you for who you really are. When I was younger, I was a chameleon. I changed myself depending on who I was with. With one group of friends, I acted one way. With another group, I acted differently. At work, I had yet another persona. I thought this was just what you did. I thought everyone wore different masks for different situations. And maybe to some extent, we all do. But I took it to an extreme. I was so busy trying to be what I thought other people wanted me to be that I lost touch with who I really was. I remember being at a party once, and someone asked me a simple question. "So, Emily, what kind of music do you like?" And I froze. I didn't know how to answer, not because I didn't have an opinion, but because I was trying to figure out what answer this person would like best. That moment was kind of embarrassing, but it was also revealing. I realized that I had been hiding my true self for so long that I had trouble accessing it even when I wanted to. So I started asking myself, who am I really? What do I actually like? What do I believe? What matters to me? And I started being more honest about the answers, even when I thought people might not like those answers. It was scary at first. I worried that people would reject me. I worried that they would think I was weird or boring or difficult. And you know what? Some people did pull away. Some people were used to the version of me that agreed with everything and never made waves. When I started expressing my real opinions and setting boundaries, some people didn't like it. But here's what I gained: authentic relationships. The people who stuck around, who accepted me as I really am, those are my true friends. Those are the relationships that matter. Those are the people I can be myself with, without fear or pretense. And I also gained self-respect. There's something incredibly freeing about being authentic. When you're not constantly worried about keeping up a facade, when you're not constantly monitoring yourself to make sure you're acting the right way, you can finally relax and just be. Now, being authentic doesn't mean being rude or having no filter. It doesn't mean sharing every thought that pops into your head. You can be authentic and still be kind. You can be yourself and still be respectful of others. Being authentic means living in alignment with your values. It means being honest about your thoughts and feelings. It means not pretending to be someone you're not just to impress people or avoid conflict. I've also learned that other people's opinions of you are none of your business. This is a hard one to accept, but it's so liberating when you do. No matter what you do, some people will like you and some people won't. Some people will think you're great and some people will criticize you. That's just life. You cannot control what other people think of you. And here's the thing: people's opinions say more about them than they do about you. If someone judges you harshly, that probably reflects their own insecurities more than any real flaw in you. I spent so much time when I was younger worrying about what people thought of me. I would replay conversations in my head, analyzing every word, wondering if I said something wrong. I would lie awake at night worrying that someone didn't like me. But all that worry was wasted energy. Most of the time, people weren't thinking about me nearly as much as I thought they were. They were busy thinking about themselves and their own lives. And even when people did have negative opinions about me, so what? Their opinion doesn't change who I am. It doesn't make me less valuable or less worthy. Now, when I catch myself worrying about what someone thinks of me, I remind myself their opinion is not my concern. I'm living my life for me, not for them. This doesn't mean I don't care about hurting people or being a good person. Of course I care about that. But there's a difference between being considerate and constantly seeking approval. So if you're someone who worries a lot about what others think, I want you to try something. For 1 week, practice being more authentic. Share your real opinion about something small. Say no to something you don't want to do. Wear something you like but were afraid to wear. See how it feels. You might be surprised at how good it feels to just be yourself. And you might be surprised at how little other people actually care or notice. Most people are too busy with their own lives to judge yours as much as you think they are. The 9th lesson I wish I knew when I was younger is about learning. Specifically, you can learn anything at any age. It's never too late to start something new. When I was younger, I had this belief that if you weren't good at something naturally, you would never be good at it. I thought talent was fixed. Either you had it or you didn't. So when I tried new things and wasn't immediately good at them, I would give up. I would think, well, I guess I'm just not talented at this. I missed out on so many opportunities because of this limiting belief. For example, I always wanted to learn to play the guitar. But when I tried in my early 20s and found it difficult, I quit after just a few weeks. I told myself, I'm just not musical. Some people are and some people aren't. Then, in my 30s, I came across this concept called the growth mindset. It's the idea that abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Talent is just the starting point. What really matters is effort, learning, and persistence. This completely changed my perspective. I realized that when I struggled with something, it didn't mean I couldn't do it. It just meant I couldn't do it yet. That little word yet makes all the difference. So I picked up the guitar again, and yes, it was still hard. My fingers hurt. The chords sounded terrible at first. I made mistakes constantly. But this time, I didn't see those things as signs that I should quit. I saw them as signs that I was learning. I practiced regularly. I was patient with myself. I celebrated small improvements. And you know what? I got better. Not perfect, not concert level, but good enough to play songs I enjoy. And the process of learning brought me so much joy. This growth mindset applies to everything: languages, skills, hobbies, even personal qualities like patience or confidence. You can develop and improve in any area if you're willing to put in the effort. Another important lesson about learning: failure is feedback. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn something. When I was younger, I was so afraid of making mistakes that I often didn't try things at all. Making a mistake felt like evidence that I was stupid or incompetent. So I stayed in my comfort zone where I knew I could succeed. But here's the truth. You cannot learn without making mistakes. Mistakes are not the opposite of learning. They're a necessary part of learning. Think about how children learn to walk. They fall down constantly, over and over again. But they don't think, well, I fell down, so I guess I'm just not a walker. They just keep trying, and eventually they learn. Somewhere along the way to adulthood, we lose that resilience. We become afraid of falling down. We become afraid of looking foolish. But that fear holds us back from so much growth. Now, when I make a mistake, I try to be curious about it instead of ashamed. I ask myself, what can I learn from this? What would I do differently next time? This approach has made me so much more willing to try new things and take risks. I also want to talk about asking for help. This is something I really struggled with when I was younger. I thought asking for help was a sign of weakness. I thought I should be able to figure everything out on my own. So I would struggle and stress trying to solve problems by myself when someone could have helped me in 5 minutes. I remember working on a project at work where I was stuck on a technical problem. I spent hours trying to figure it out. I stayed late, I got frustrated and stressed. Finally, after 2 days of struggling, I asked a coworker for help. He showed me how to solve it in literally 5 minutes. 5 minutes! I had wasted hours because I was too proud to ask. That taught me an important lesson. Asking for help is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's understanding that you don't have to know everything and that other people's knowledge and experience can be valuable resources. These days, I'm much more comfortable asking for help. And you know what? People are usually happy to help. Most people actually like sharing their knowledge and expertise. It makes them feel good to be helpful. So, if you're struggling with something, don't suffer alone. Ask for help, whether it's at work, in your personal life, or with learning a new skill. There are people who have already figured out what you're trying to learn. Why not benefit from their experience? Finally, about learning, read more. This is simple advice, but it's so powerful. Reading exposes you to new ideas, new perspectives, new ways of thinking. It teaches you about the world and about yourself. It develops your empathy by letting you see life through other people's eyes. And it improves your communication skills, your vocabulary, your critical thinking. When I was younger, I didn't read much. I was always too busy, too tired. I would spend my free time watching TV or scrolling through my phone. And those things are fine in moderation, but they're not as enriching as reading. Now, I try to read for at least 20 or 30 minutes every day. Sometimes it's fiction, sometimes nonfiction. Sometimes it's challenging, sometimes it's just for fun. But I always learn something, and I always finish reading feeling like my time was well spent. If you're not in the habit of reading, start small. Maybe just 10 minutes before bed, or during your lunch break, or while you're waiting for appointments. Those small moments add up, and once you start, you might find yourself wanting to read more. Let's talk about family now. The 10th thing I wish I knew when I was younger is about relationships with parents. Specifically, your parents are just people, imperfect people doing their best. When I was younger, I had a lot of resentment toward my parents. They weren't perfect. They made mistakes. They didn't always understand me. There were things about my childhood that I wished had been different. I spent a lot of energy being angry about these things. I would think about all the ways they had failed me. I would compare them to other people's parents who seemed better, more understanding, more supportive. But as I got older, something shifted. I started to see my parents as real people, not just as mom and dad. I started to understand that they had their own struggles, their own wounds from their own childhoods, their own limitations. I realized that they were doing the best they could with what they had. They didn't have a manual for parenting. They were figuring it out as they went along, just like I'm figuring out my own life. This doesn't mean I excuse everything they did. It doesn't mean I pretend that mistakes didn't happen or that certain things didn't hurt me. But it does mean I can have compassion for them. I can understand that they're human. One conversation really changed my perspective. I was talking with my mom one day, and she told me about her own childhood. She told me things I had never known before about her relationship with her parents, about challenges she faced, about dreams she had to give up. And I realized my mom was doing better than her parents did. She was breaking cycles. She was trying to give me things she never had. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying. That conversation helped me let go of a lot of resentment. It helped me appreciate what my parents did give me instead of focusing only on what they didn't. If you have a complicated relationship with your parents, I encourage you to try to see them as people, not to excuse bad behavior, but to understand it in context, to have compassion, to recognize that they too are figuring life out, and if possible, have honest conversations with them. Tell them how you feel. Ask them about their experiences. You might be surprised at what you learn. You might find healing and connection that you didn't know was possible. Of course, not all family relationships can be healed. Some are too damaged or toxic, and in those cases, it's okay to set boundaries or even to step away. You don't owe anyone a relationship, not even family members. But if the relationship can be improved, if there's room for understanding and growth, it's worth the effort, because time is limited, and there may come a day when you wish you had made that effort. Another thing I wish I knew: tell the people you love that you love them. Don't assume they know. Say it out loud. I'm not someone who was raised in a very emotionally expressive family. We didn't say, "I love you," very often. We showed love through actions, not words, and that was fine. But it also meant that sometimes I wasn't sure how my family felt about me. As an adult, I've tried to be more expressive. I tell my family I love them. I tell my friends I appreciate them. I express gratitude and affection openly. And you know what? It feels good, both for me and for the people I'm saying it to. Those words matter. They create connection. They make people feel valued and important. Don't wait for a special occasion. Don't wait until it feels comfortable or natural. Just say it. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm grateful for you. You will never regret expressing love and appreciation, but you might regret not doing it. I also learned this lesson. Forgiveness is more for you than for the other person. Holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to get sick. It only hurts you. For years, I held on to anger about things from my past, things people had done to me, ways I had been hurt, and I thought I was justified in that anger. I thought they wronged me. They should feel bad. But the anger wasn't hurting them. It was hurting me. It was taking up space in my heart and my mind. It was affecting my current relationships and my happiness. Eventually, I realized that forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you have to reconcile with the person. Forgiveness just means you're letting go of the anger. You're choosing peace instead of resentment. So I worked on forgiveness, sometimes through therapy, sometimes through journaling, sometimes just through conscious choice. And as I let go of that old anger, I felt lighter. I felt freer. I had more energy for the present instead of being stuck in the past. If you're holding on to old hurts, I encourage you to consider forgiveness, not for the other person's sake, but for your own. You deserve peace. You deserve to move forward, unburdened by the past. Now, let's talk about happiness. The 11th thing I wish I knew when I was younger is this. Happiness is not a destination. It's not something you achieve and then have forever. It's something you practice every day. When I was younger, I thought happiness would come when I reached certain milestones. I'll be happy when I graduate. I'll be happy when I get a good job. I'll be happy when I find a partner. I'll be happy when I make more money. But here's what happened. I reached those milestones and I wasn't magically happy. There was a brief moment of excitement or relief, and then life just continued. The finish line kept moving. There was always another goal, another milestone that I thought would finally make me happy. This is called the hedonic treadmill. No matter what you achieve or require, you quickly adapt to it and return to your baseline level of happiness. That promotion feels great for a week or two, and then it just becomes your normal. That new car is exciting at first, but soon it's just how you get to work. So if happiness doesn't come from achievements or possessions, where does it come from? I've learned that happiness comes from within. It comes from how you think, how you relate to your experiences, how you appreciate what you have. It's a skill you can develop, not a goal you achieve. One of the most powerful practices I've adopted is gratitude. I mentioned this briefly earlier, but it's worth expanding on because it has made such a difference in my life. Every day, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for. Sometimes they're big things like my health or my relationships, but often they're small things. A good cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind interaction with a stranger, a song I love on the radio. This practice trains your brain to notice the good things in your life. And when you notice good things, you feel happier. It's that simple. Our brains have something called a negativity bias. We're naturally more attuned to problems and threats than to positive things. This was useful for our ancestors who needed to stay alert to danger, but in modern life, it just makes us focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. Practicing gratitude counteracts this negativity bias. It helps you see the full picture of your life, not just the problems. I also want to talk about comparison and happiness. We've talked about comparison before, but it's worth revisiting in the context of happiness. You will never be happy if you're constantly comparing yourself to others. There will always be someone who has more, does more, or seems happier. If your happiness depends on being better than others, you're setting yourself up for misery. Instead, focus on your own journey. Celebrate your own progress. Appreciate what you have. Run your own race. I like this quote. Comparison is the thief of joy. It's so true. When you're busy comparing, you can't enjoy what you have. You're always focused on the gap between you and someone else instead of appreciating your own life. Another insight about happiness. Happiness comes from experiences, not things. This is backed up by research, but it also matches my personal experience. When I was younger, I thought buying things would make me happy. New clothes, new gadgets, new furniture. And these things did bring temporary pleasure, but the happiness faded quickly. But when I invested in experiences, trips, concerts, classes, time with friends, the happiness lasted longer. I have memories from those experiences that still bring me joy years later. I can't say the same about most of the things I bought. So if you have a choice between buying something or doing something, I'd encourage you to choose the experience. Take the trip, go to the concert, try the class. You'll be glad you did. Related to this, spend money on time. If you can afford it, pay for services that give you more time. Time to do things you enjoy, time to rest, time to spend with people you love. For example, maybe you hate cleaning your house. If you can afford to hire someone to clean, even once a month, it might be worth it. Not because you're lazy, but because it frees up your time for things that actually make you happy. Or maybe you order groceries online instead of spending 2 hours at the store. Or you pay for a meal delivery service occasionally. Or you hire someone to do your taxes instead of struggling through it yourself. Time is precious. If you can buy yourself more time to do things you love, that's often money well spent. I also learned this. Happiness requires action, not just thinking. You can't think your way to happiness. You have to do things. On a project, help someone, do something, anything, rather than just sitting with negative thoughts. There's this concept called behavioral activation in psychology. It's the idea that action comes before motivation, not after. You don't wait until you feel motivated to do something. You do it first, and then the motivation and good feelings follow. So if you're waiting to feel happy before you start doing things, you've got it backwards. Start doing things that align with your values, things that give you a sense of purpose or connection, and happiness will follow. Finally, about happiness, it's okay to not be happy all the time. Life includes difficult emotions, sadness, anger, frustration, disappointment. These are all normal parts of the human experience. When I was younger, I thought something was wrong with me when I felt sad or anxious. I thought I should be happy all the time, and when I wasn't, I felt like I was failing. But now I understand that all emotions have value. Difficult emotions tell us important things. They help us process experiences. They motivate us to make changes. They're not problems to be fixed. They're just part of life. The goal is not to be happy all the time. The goal is to have a generally positive baseline, to be able to experience joy and contentment regularly, and to be able to cope with difficult emotions when they arise. So be gentle with yourself. It's okay to have bad days. It's okay to feel sad or angry or frustrated. You're not broken. You're human. Let's talk about legacy and meaning. The 12th thing I wish I knew when I was younger is your life has meaning beyond your achievements. When I was younger, I thought my worth was determined by what I accomplished. My job title, my salary, my achievements, my productivity. I thought that's what made a life meaningful. So I pushed myself constantly. I worked long hours. I took on more and more responsibility. I said yes to every opportunity, and I burned myself out in the process. One day, I was talking to an older colleague who was about to retire. I asked him what he was most proud of from his career. I expected him to talk about the big projects he had led or the awards he had won. But instead, he said something that surprised me. He said, "I'm most proud of the people I mentored, the young professionals I helped along the way. Some of them are doing amazing things now, and I like to think I played a small part in that." That conversation made me rethink what matters, because when I think about the people who have influenced my life the most, it's not the most successful or accomplished people. It's the people who were kind to me, who believed in me, who helped me when I was struggling, who treated me with respect and dignity. Your legacy is not your resume. It's not your bank account or your possessions. Your legacy is how you made people feel, how you treated others, the kindness you showed, the help you offered, the love you gave. This doesn't mean that achievements don't matter. They do. It's good to work hard and pursue goals, but achievements are not what make your life meaningful. Relationships and kindness and contribution, those are what make life meaningful. I've also learned that meaning comes from contribution, from giving, not just receiving, from helping others, not just helping yourself. When I was younger, I was very focused on myself, my goals, my needs, my success. And there's a time and place for that focus, especially when you're young and building your life. But I found that the times I feel most fulfilled are when I'm contributing to something beyond myself, when I'm helping someone else, when I'm part of a community, when I'm working towards something that matters. This could be volunteer work, it could be mentoring someone younger, it could be helping a friend through a difficult time. It could be creating something that others will benefit from. It could be raising children. It could be any number of things. The point is, we're not here just for ourselves. We're here for each other. And when we contribute to others' lives, our own lives feel more meaningful. There's actually research on this. Studies show that people who volunteer or help others are happier and healthier than those who don't. Giving activates the reward centers in our brain. We're wired for connection and contribution. So if you're feeling like your life lacks meaning, ask yourself, how can I contribute? How can I help? What can I give? The answer doesn't have to be something huge. Even small acts of kindness and service can bring tremendous meaning to your life. Another insight about meaning: you don't have to have one singular purpose. This is something I really struggled with when I was younger. I kept trying to figure out my life purpose. I thought there was one specific thing I was meant to do, and if I could just figure out what it was, everything would make sense. But I've come to realize that life doesn't work that way. You don't have one purpose, you have many purposes, and they can change over time. Right now, maybe your purpose is to be a good friend, or to learn and grow in your career, or to heal from past trauma, or to create art, or to raise your children, or to take care of your aging parents. Your purpose is not one fixed thing you have to discover. It's whatever is meaningful to you right now, in this season of your life. And that's okay. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to know exactly where you're going. You just have to keep moving forward, keep growing, keep contributing. I also want to say this. Your worth is not determined by your productivity. You have value simply because you exist. You don't have to earn your worth through achievement or contribution. This is a hard one for me. I still struggle with it. I still feel guilty when I'm not being productive. I still feel like I have to justify my existence through doing. But I'm learning that rest is valuable, play is valuable, simply being is valuable. You are not a machine. You are a human being, not a human doing. In our culture, we glorify busyness and productivity. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, but this is not healthy. It's not sustainable, and it's not what gives life meaning. So give yourself permission to rest. Give yourself permission to do things just for joy, with no productive purpose. Give yourself permission to exist without constantly proving your worth. Finally, about meaning and legacy, the small moments matter most. Life is not made up of big, dramatic moments. It's made up of thousands of small, ordinary moments. The cup of coffee in the morning, the conversation with a coworker, the sunset you notice on your way home, the text from a friend, the book before bed. These small moments are your life. So pay attention to them. Appreciate them. Don't always be rushing to the next thing. Don't always be waiting for the big moments. The big moments are rare. The small moments are constant, and they're beautiful if you notice them. When you're old, looking back on your life, you probably won't remember most of the big achievements, but you will remember how you felt. You'll remember moments of connection, of joy, of peace. You'll remember the people you loved and who loved you. So live your life in a way that creates those kinds of memories. Be present, be kind, be loving. That's what matters in the end. Let's talk about courage now. The 13th thing I wish I knew when I was younger is courage is not the absence of fear. It's taking action despite fear. When I was younger, I thought brave people were people who didn't feel afraid. I thought courage meant being fearless. So when I felt afraid, I thought it meant I wasn't brave enough. I thought it meant I shouldn't do the thing I was afraid of. But I've learned that everyone feels afraid sometimes. Fear is a normal human emotion. It's not something to be ashamed of or to avoid. The difference between people who do brave things and people who don't is not that some people don't feel fear. It's that some people feel the fear and do it anyway. I remember when I was considering leaving my stable job to pursue a different career path. I was terrified. What if it didn't work out? What if I failed? What if I couldn't pay my bills? What if people thought I was making a huge mistake? The fear was real and intense, but I also knew that if I didn't try, I would always wonder, what if? I would always regret not taking the chance. So I did it. I felt the fear, acknowledged it, and took action anyway. And you know what? Some of my fears came true. It was hard. There were moments of uncertainty and struggle, but I also learned so much. I grew so much, and I don't regret it for a second. That experience taught me that regret is worse than failure. If you fail, at least you tried. You learned something. You have a story. But if you never try because you're too afraid, you'll always wonder what might have been. I don't want to get to the end of my life with a long list of what ifs. I don't want to look back and think about all the things I didn't do because I was too scared. That sounds like a sad way to live. So now, when I'm faced with a scary decision, I ask myself, will I regret not doing this? If the answer is yes, then I know I need to find the courage to try. Another thing about courage, start small. You don't have to make huge, dramatic changes all at once. You can build courage gradually. Think of courage like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start with small acts of courage. Speak up in a meeting. Try a new activity. Have an uncomfortable conversation. Each small act builds your confidence and capacity for bigger acts. I like to practice what I call micro-bravery. Every day I try to do at least one thing that scares me a little bit. It doesn't have to be anything major. Maybe it's sending an email I've been putting off. Maybe it's introducing myself to someone new. Maybe it's trying a food I've never had before. These small acts of courage add up. They teach me that I can handle discomfort. They expand my comfort zone gradually, and they make bigger acts of courage feel more possible. I also learned this. Courage sometimes means asking for what you need. This is especially true in professional settings. When I was younger, I was afraid to negotiate, afraid to ask for a raise, afraid to speak up about unfair treatment. I thought I should just be grateful for what I had and not rock the boat. But I've learned that if you don't advocate for yourself, often no one else will. You have to ask for what you want and what you deserve. I'll never forget the first time I negotiated my salary. I had received a job offer, and the salary was okay, but I knew I could get more. I was so nervous about asking. What if they rescinded the offer? What if they thought I was greedy? But I did my research. I knew what the market rate was for someone with my skills and experience, so I asked for more, politely and professionally. And they said yes, just like that. I got several $1,000s more per year simply because I asked. And I realized that if I hadn't asked, I would have left that money on the table. That experience taught me something important. The worst someone can say is no, and often they don't say no. They say yes, or they meet you somewhere in the middle. But you have to ask. So don't be afraid to advocate for yourself. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. You deserve to be treated fairly and paid fairly, but you have to speak up. Another lesson about courage. It's okay to be a beginner. This ties into what I said earlier about learning, but it's worth repeating in the context of courage. Being a beginner is uncomfortable. You're not good at the thing yet. You make mistakes. You might look foolish, and that's scary. When I was younger, this fear stopped me from trying new things. I didn't want to be bad at something. I didn't want people to see me struggle. But now I understand that everyone is a beginner at first. Everyone who is now an expert was once a complete novice. The only way to get good at something is to be willing to be bad at it first. So I've learned to embrace being a beginner. When I try something new and I'm terrible at it, instead of feeling embarrassed, I try to feel proud. Proud that I'm trying. Proud that I'm learning. Proud that I had the courage to step outside my comfort zone. And you know what? Most people are not judging you nearly as much as you think they are. Most people respect someone who's trying something new. They remember what it was like to be a beginner themselves. Finally, about courage, surround yourself with people who encourage you. The people around you have a huge impact on your willingness to take risks and be brave. If you're surrounded by people who are always negative, who always focus on what could go wrong, who discourage you from trying new things, it's going to be hard to be courageous. But if you're surrounded by people who believe in you, who encourage you to go for your dreams, who celebrate your successes and support you through failures, you'll find it much easier to be brave. So choose your people carefully. Seek out relationships with people who inspire you and push you to grow. And be that kind of person for others too. Be someone who encourages courage in the people around you. The 14th lesson I wish I knew when I was younger is about forgiveness and letting go. We touched on this briefly earlier, but I want to go deeper because it's so important. Holding on to anger is like holding on to hot coal. You're the one who gets burned. I spent years of my life holding on to grudges. Someone would hurt me or disappoint me, and I would hold on to that pain. I would replay the incident in my mind over and over. I would imagine confrontations where I told them off. I would fantasize about them apologizing or facing consequences. But all of that mental energy was hurting me, not them. They had moved on with their lives. Meanwhile, I was stuck, replaying the past, feeling angry and hurt. I'll tell you about a specific situation. In my mid-20s, a close friend betrayed my trust in a significant way. Without going into details, let's just say it was hurtful and it damaged our friendship. For years, I held on to anger about this. I would think about it and feel that rush of indignation and hurt all over again. I avoided mutual friends because I didn't want to hear about her. I turned down invitations to events where she might be present. One day, I was talking to my therapist about this, and she asked me a simple question. Is holding on to this anger serving you in any way? I thought about it, and the answer was no. It wasn't protecting me. It wasn't changing what had happened. It wasn't making me feel better. It was just keeping me stuck in the past. So I made a decision to work on forgiveness, not because my friend deserved it. She hadn't even apologized, but because I deserved to be free from that burden. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about you. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of resentment and anger. Now, let me be clear. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean you have to reconcile with the person or let them back into your life. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries. You can forgive someone and still acknowledge that what they did was wrong. Forgiveness just means you're no longer going to let this person and this situation have power over your emotional well-being. You're choosing peace over anger. So, how do you actually forgive? For me, it was a process. Here's what helped. First, I acknowledged my feelings. I didn't try to pretend I wasn't hurt or angry. I let myself feel those emotions fully. Second, I tried to understand the situation from a broader perspective. This doesn't mean excusing the behavior, but trying to understand what might have been going on for the other person. Hurt people hurt people. Everyone is fighting battles we know nothing about. Third, I wrote a letter to this person expressing everything I felt. I never sent it, but getting it all out on paper was cathartic. It helps me process my feelings. Fourth, I made a conscious decision to release the anger. Sometimes I would literally visualize putting it down, like putting down a heavy bag I had been carrying. And finally, I focused on my present life instead of the past. Every time my mind went back to that situation, I gently redirected it to something in my present life that I was grateful for. It didn't happen overnight, but gradually the anger faded. And when I think about that situation now, I don't feel that hot rush of emotion anymore. I feel nothing, really. Maybe a slight sadness that things turned out that way, but no anger. And that freedom is worth more than any apology or revenge could ever be. Another aspect of letting go is accepting what you cannot change. There's a famous prayer, the Serenity Prayer, that goes, "Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference." This is such powerful wisdom. So much suffering comes from trying to control things that are outside our control. You cannot control what other people think, say, or do. You cannot control the past. You cannot control many circumstances in your life. You can only control your own thoughts actions and responses. When I was younger, I wasted so much energy trying to control things I couldn't control. I would ruminate about past situations, wishing they had gone differently. I would worry about the future, trying to plan for every possible outcome. I would try to manage other people's opinions and reactions. It was exhausting, and it was futile, because you cannot control these things. Learning to accept what I cannot change has brought me so much peace. Now, when I'm faced with a situation, I ask myself, is this within my control? If it is, I take action. If it's not, I practice acceptance. This doesn't mean giving up or being passive. It means recognizing where your power lies and focusing your energy there. For example, you can't control whether you get a job you interviewed for, but you can control how well you prepare for the interview. You can't control whether someone likes you, but you can control how you treat people. You can't control getting sick, but you can control how you take care of your health. Focus on what you can control and let go of what you can't. This simple shift in perspective can dramatically reduce stress and increase your sense of peace and agency. I also learned that you can let go of past versions of yourself. You don't have to be the person you were 5 years ago or even last year. People change, and that's okay. Sometimes we hold on to identities that no longer serve us because we think that's who we are. I'm not a morning person. I'm bad with money. I'm shy. I'm disorganized. But these are just stories we tell ourselves. They're not fixed truths. You can change these stories. If you want to become a morning person, you can work on it. If you want to be better with money, you can learn. If you want to be more outgoing, you can practice. If you want to be more organized, you can develop systems. You are not static. You are constantly evolving. Give yourself permission to outgrow old versions of yourself. Give yourself permission to change. And on the flip side, let other people change too. Don't lock people into who they used to be. If someone hurt you in the past, but has genuinely changed and grown, it's okay to give them another chance if you want to. If someone was difficult to be around, but has done work on themselves, notice and acknowledge that growth. We all deserve the grace to change and grow. Extend that grace to yourself and to others. Well, we're coming to the end of this conversation. These 15 parts, 15 lessons are things I wish I had known when I was younger. But you know what? I'm actually grateful that I had to learn them the hard way, because lessons learned through experience stay with you in a way that lessons you're just told never do. You can tell someone something 100 times, but until they experience it themselves, it doesn't really sink in. So if you're young and you're watching this, don't be too hard on yourself if you make the mistakes I made. You probably will make them. That's okay. That's part of life. Just try to learn from them. Try to grow. Try to be a little bit better each day. And if you're older, if you're my age or older, maybe you recognized some of your own experiences in my stories. Maybe you nodded along, thinking, yes, I learned that too. If so, I hope this conversation reminded you of how far you've come. I hope it reminded you to be gentle with yourself. Before I finish, I want to share a few final thoughts. First, life is not about having it all figured out. If you're waiting until you have everything figured out to start living fully, you'll be waiting forever. Nobody has it all figured out. We're all just doing our best with what we know right now. Give yourself permission to be uncertain. Give yourself permission to not know. Give yourself permission to change your mind. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Second, comparison really is the thief of joy. I've said this multiple times throughout this talk because it's so important. Your life is your own unique journey. It's not a competition. Stop comparing your chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 20. Focus on your own growth. Celebrate your own progress. Be proud of how far you've come, not discouraged by how far you have to go. Third, relationships are what matter most. At the end of your life, you won't wish you had worked more hours or made more money or bought more things. You'll think about the people you loved and who loved you. You'll think about the memories you made together. So invest in relationships. Show up for people. Be present. Express love and appreciation. These are the things that give life meaning. Fourth, your younger self would be proud of you. I think about this sometimes. I think about the Emily I was at 20 with all her dreams and fears and insecurities, and I think about what she would think of who I am now. Would she be proud? I think she would be, not because I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve, but because I've grown, because I've learned, because I've become more authentic, more compassionate, more resilient. Think about your younger self. What would they think of you now? I bet they'd be proud too. You've made it through things they were scared of. You've learned things they wanted to know. You've become who they were trying to become. Give yourself credit for that. Acknowledge your growth. Fifth, it's never too late to start. Whatever it is you want to do, learn, try, or become, it's not too late. Whether you're 20 or 40 or 60, you can still make changes. You can still pursue dreams. You can still learn and grow. Don't let age be an excuse for staying stuck. Don't tell yourself, I'm too old to start now. You're not. You're exactly the right age to start. Because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. Sixth, be kind to yourself. This might be the most important thing I can tell you. Be kind to yourself. Talk to yourself the way you would talk to a good friend. When you make a mistake, don't beat yourself up. Learn from it and move on. When you're struggling, don't tell yourself you're not good enough. Acknowledge that it's hard and give yourself compassion. You are doing better than you think you are. You are enough just as you are. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be you. Finally, life is short, but it's also long. This might sound contradictory, but bear with me. Life is short in the sense that our time here is limited. We don't know how much time we have, so we should make the most of it. We should pursue what matters to us. We should express love. We should take chances. We should live fully. But life is also long in the sense that you have time. You have time to change. You have time to learn. You have time to grow. You don't have to do everything right now. You don't have to have it all figured out by a certain age. There is a beautiful tension between these two truths. Live urgently because time is precious, but also be patient with yourself because you have time to become who you want to become. So those are the things I wish I knew when I was younger. 15 lessons learned through experience, mistakes, growth, and reflection. But here's the thing. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. I'm still making mistakes. I don't have it all figured out, and I probably never will. And that's okay. Life is not about reaching some final destination where you have all the answers and everything is perfect. Life is the journey. It's the learning, the growing, the trying, the failing, the succeeding, the connecting, the changing. So whatever stage of life you're in, know this. You're exactly where you need to be. You're doing better than you think, and the best is yet to come. Thank you so much for listening to this long talk. I know it was quite a journey. I hope something in here resonated with you. I hope it gave you something to think about, or maybe even inspired you to make a change in your own life. Remember, be kind to yourself, be patient with your journey, celebrate your growth, and never stop learning. Take care of yourself. Until next time.